These are the stories making the headlines at this hour. North Korea has fired yet another round of cruise missiles off its western coast, the third such launch in less than a week. South Korea and the U.S. are analyzing the details. Russian President Vladimir Putin is officially registered for the presidential election in March. Putin is seeking to secure his fifth term in office with an 80% approval rating, making a win highly likely. President Yoon has vowed to digitize 1,500 civil services run by the government and offer the same protection for game users as the government does for other consumers. Good afternoon. Our top story this hour. North Korea has fired yet another round of cruise missiles, this time off its western coast. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff detected the launch of several cruise missiles at around 7 a.m. Tuesday into the West Sea. The type of cruise missile is unknown, but the launch comes just 2 days after the North test fired what it claims to be submarine-launched cruise missiles off its east coast. The military says South Korean and U.S. authorities are conducting a detailed analysis of the latest launch, which is the third in less than a week. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg expressed concerns over military cooperation between North Korea and Russia. During their talks on Monday in Washington, the two discussed concerns that an arms transfer will further assist Russia in its war in Ukraine. The meeting came as Stoltenberg was in U.S. Capitol to discuss maintaining support for Ukraine and preparations for the NATO summit, which will take place in Washington in July. The White House said Pyongyang has provided Moscow with several dozen ballistic missiles for use in Ukraine, as well as ammunition and other military equipment. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin is officially registered for the presidential election in March. Putin is seeking to secure his fifth term in office with an 80% approval rating, making a win highly likely. Yoon has more.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin will be running for office for the fifth time in the 2024 presidential election. On Monday, Russia's Election Commission announced his official registration as a candidate for the upcoming election in March.
Who is for, who is against, who abstained, approved unanimously.
Running as an independent, Putin required at least 300,000 signatures gathered by his campaign from at least 40 regions of Russia. Following an examination of 315,000 signatures collected from 89 regions, Russia's Central Election Commission officially approved Putin's candidacy for the election.
It's a great honor to receive and hand over the certificate of Russia's presidential candidacy to Vladimir Putin. I will do it very soon.
The 71-year-old incumbent president has an approval rating of about 80%. Putin's chance of securing another 6-year term in power is almost certain, especially with opposition figures and independent media outlets in danger of suppression. Opposition leader Alexei Navalny was handed a 19-year jail term in 2021 on charges of extremism, having led protests against the Kremlin. 3 other candidates from parties represented in parliament have also been approved by the commission, representing the Communist Party, the Nationalist Liberal Democratic Party, and the New People Party. Another potential candidate is liberal politician Boris Nadezhd, who expressed his support for an end to the conflict in Ukraine, but his candidacy is still under review. After first coming to power in 2000, Putin has won all 4 presidential elections in which he has been a candidate. He also served a 4-year term as prime minister from 2008 to 2012. In 2018, Putin separated himself from the United Russia Party, choosing to run independently, winning over 75% of the votes. Putin himself made a change to Russia's constitution in 2020, which allows him to run for 2 more 6-year terms and potentially remain in power until 2036. Yoon, Arirang News.
The European Union has decided to extend the economic sanctions imposed on Russia for another 6 months. The EU Council made the announcement on Monday, citing Russia's continued actions that destabilize the situation in Ukraine. With that, the sanctions will remain in place until the end of July. Since Russia's annexation of the Crimean Peninsula in 2014, the EU has been implementing sanctions against Moscow, the scope of which has expanded since the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. The most recent round of sanctions include a ban on import of diamonds, as Russia is the world's largest producer of them. Meanwhile, Bloomberg reports that EU is considering new sanctions with an adoption date of February 24th in mind, the second anniversary of the Ukraine war. The U.S. has named the 3 soldiers killed in the drone attack, which it claims was conducted by Iran-backed military groups. Washington has vowed to retaliate against those responsible for the attack, but says it does not want tensions to escalate in the Middle East. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
3 U.S. soldiers were killed and dozens injured in a drone attack on a base in Jordan by Iran-supported forces on Sunday. This prompted a response from Washington with a vow to retaliate against Iran-backed forces for their deadly attack. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Monday that the U.S. will engage in strong multi-level and continuous retaliation against those responsible for the attack. White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby, in an interview with MSNBC on Monday, also reiterated President Joe Biden's earlier call for retaliation. Kirby stressed that the U.S. must do what it can to protect the soldiers and facilities, adding Biden will make the right decision at the right time. However, the spokesman stressed that the U.S. does not want a war with Iran, nor does it want to escalate tensions in the Middle East. When asked if that meant there wouldn't be any military action inside Iran, Kirby avoided a direct answer, instead saying that the U.S. will respond appropriately. Meanwhile, the U.S. Defense Department identified the 3 soldiers who were killed on Sunday in the drone attack conducted by the Iran-backed militant groups. 46-year-old Sergeant William Rivers, 24-year-old Specialist Kennedy Sanders, and 23-year-old Specialist Brianna Moffitt, all from the U.S. state of Georgia, were killed in the attack. Pentagon Deputy Press Secretary Sabrina Singh said all 3 were assigned to the 718th Engineer Company, a U.S. Army Reserve unit based out of Fort Moore, Georgia. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Wall Street benchmark stocks continue to rally, a record high on Monday, with big tech earning results to come, as well as the Fed's policy decision. The S&P gained 0.76% to nearly 5,000. The Dow Jones Industrial reached 38,300, rising 0.59%. Investors have high hopes for big tech companies such as Apple and Meta, as they will be posting their earnings results this week. The FOMC will also begin its 2-day policy meeting on Tuesday, where the Fed may hint at interest rate cuts throughout this year amid a cool down in inflation. Reduced estimates of first quarter borrowing also added to the strong performance. In an effort to make civil service administrative tasks easier, the South Korean government will digitize around 1,500 different services in the next 3 years. That is according to President Yoon Suk-yeol on Tuesday during the 7th Livelihood Policy discussion with citizens under the theme of digitalization for living together and protecting individual rights. Participants had raised the issue of the complexity of administrative processes, including for welfare programs, with the president. Other areas discussed under the same theme were the gaming industry and telemedicine. The government promised to push for regulations that stop deceptive item selling practices by gaming companies and support an expansion for telemedicine. Following President Yoon's calls for measures to prevent monopoly in the online platform market and promote healthy competition, the country's antitrust regulator is due to propose a bill to meet these goals. Moon Hyun has the details.
A bill to regulate market domination by online platforms has sparked debate among domestic and global businesses in the tech industry. The Online Platform Fairness Act is currently being drafted by South Korea's Fair Trade Commission, with a bill set to be announced sometime next month. The FTC aims to prohibit unfair business practices and ease consumer burdens by restricting market leaders from keeping competition in check. This in turn could provide more opportunities for small and medium-sized businesses and startups to enter the market. While the full details of the bill have yet to be revealed, the FTC has said that it would crack down on platforms that are engaging in monopolistic practices, citing Google's policies preventing game publishers from releasing their titles outside of Google's Play Store. It also cited domestic tech giant Kakao's manipulation of its algorithm to favor its own cab drivers above others on its Kakao mobility apps. The regulator has said that it will define market leaders by setting a quantitative standard such as for sales and the number of users, similarly to how the EU qualifies a large online platform as a gatekeeper in its Digital Markets Act. But domestic startup firms were found to have concerns in a survey conducted by Startup Alliance Korea, with many saying that startups that are not profitable but have a large number of users face being regulated, which could hinder growth. In response to growing concerns from the tech industry, the government says it will limit the number of companies it defines as a market leader to 4 or 5 firms. These are most likely to be domestic tech companies Naver and Kakao, as well as global firms such as Google and Apple. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce voiced opposition to these proposed regulations, calling on Seoul to provide sufficient opportunity for dialogue with Washington and that the full text of the proposed legislation should be made publicly available. It's expected that it will take more than a year to implement the law even after the disclosure of the bill, considering the time it takes for the bill to pass through the National Assembly and subsequent subordinate laws to be enacted. 문혜련, Arirang News.
The Cabinet on Tuesday passed a motion requesting parliamentary reconsideration of a special bill calling for an independent investigation into the deadly Itaewon crowd crush in 2022. During the meeting, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo called for negotiations to develop a new proposal to ensure a fair investigation and ways to prevent a recurrence of a similar tragedy. This came 11 days after the law was sent to the government and 3 weeks after it was passed by the opposition-controlled assembly. President Yoon Suk-yeol is likely to exercise his veto power once again. Should Yoon choose to reject the opposition-led bills, this will mark his 5th veto since taking office. Starting last Saturday, by paying around $50 a month, people can get an unlimited transit pass here in Seoul thanks to the city's climate card. Park Gun-woo reports.
Unlimited access to public transportation is now available in the capital. The Seoul metropolitan government started a new 6-month pilot project on Saturday that allows limitless public transport access with its so-called climate card as a means to cope with climate change and lower household expenses. The card is based on the D-ticket issued in Germany. According to the metropolitan government, it is expecting 13,000 fewer cars to be used and a cut of 32,000 tons in greenhouse gases emitted annually through this project. The climate card allows people to ride subways or buses within Seoul for 62,000 Korean won, or a little under $50 per month, if downloaded to a mobile phone, and even public bikes if users add around $2 more.
2만 원 정도 절약되는 걸로 알고 있습니다. 교통비가 고정적으로 나가니까 좀 좋을 것 같다 생각을 하고 있습니다.
The card is valid on subway lines within the Seoul region, including numbers 1 to 9, Sillim and Suinbundang, among others, although some are excluded, such as the Shinbundang line, due to different fare structures. Users will need to pay an additional charge to subway employees when traveling to stations not included in the pilot project. Most intra-capital bus routes are also part of the project. Green and blue buses heading to places outside Seoul are included if the bus license plate was issued by the Seoul local government. The transport passes can be bought at offices inside subway stations or nearby convenience stores. I also bought this card, the climate card, for 3,000 won. You just need to charge it using this machine just like any other transportation card. Android phone users can get the mobile version of the card by downloading the T-Money application. After sales began on January 23rd, nearly 200,000 cars were sold within 3 days, leading to many subway stations and convenience stores running out due to their popularity. And more than 70,000 people used the card on the first day. But some spoke about the need for improvement.
광역버스나 지하철 여러 가지 노선도 다 이용화 가능하게 하면은 많은 사람들이 더 이용할 것 같아요.
Meanwhile, Seoul said it would do its best to remove any inconveniences found during the climate card pilot project. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
Over in Gangwon, young athletes from around the world continue chasing their dreams. To cheer them on, 3 legendary South Korean Olympic medalists, including figure skating champion Kim Yeon-ah, share their know-how on achieving their goals. Choi Soo-hyung reports.
Grow together, shine forever. In Korea's eastern province of Gangwon, where the Winter Youth Olympics are taking place, 3 legendary Korean Olympic gold medalists gathered with the teens on Sunday to share their youthful experiences. In their presentations, they provided practical advice and hopeful messages on how to overcome limitations and achieve their goals. Kim Yeon-ah, the iconic figure skater who won gold and silver Olympic medals in 2010 and 2014 respectively, said she was always prepared to fall and controlled her mental health.
I prepared for the worst and imagined making mistakes before the games, all to take care of my mental health. I've always thought that it's okay if things don't go well, and the thought that I can fail anytime helped me relieve the pressure.
Yoo Seung-min, the gold medalist in table tennis at the 2004 Olympics and a member of the International Olympic Committee Athletes Commission since 2016, said it was important not to set limits based on what people say, especially after hard preparations.
Nobody expected me to win, but I had confidence in myself because I had prepared a lot. I could have been low on confidence because people had judged me in that way, but I kept myself thinking, oh, I did well even when I lost. So ironically, it eased the pressure on me.
2018 Olympic skeleton gold medalist Yoon Sung-bin emphasized trying to experience as much as possible to find one's own strengths.
When you are young, it's good to try many different things. I believe that finding one's talent is the hardest task. So, you need to have various experiences to discover what you can excel in.
The Gangwon 2024 Winter Youth Olympics, with South Korea hosting the first ever event in Asia, will run until February 1st. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. In France, groups of farmers on Monday blocked major roads towards the capital, Paris, with tractors and a wall of hay in what they're calling the Siege of Paris. With similar demonstrations taking place across the country, the French police have not yet intervened to remove the roadblocks. Angry farmers have been protesting for days, the majority of whom are unhappy about the EU's 2023 nature restoration law, which requires environmental measures to restore a fifth of the member states' land and sea by 2030. Protests have spread to Belgium and Germany, where tractors are blocking routes to Hamburg's ports. French authorities have reportedly mobilized around 15,000 police officers to prevent tractors from entering Paris and other major cities. But many farmers show their determination to stay in protest until change is made, with some saying that their aim is to stop food deliveries to supermarkets. A French government spokesperson said on Monday afternoon that new measures in support of the farmers will likely be announced from Tuesday onwards. Hong Kong's High Court on Monday ordered the liquidation of the debt-ridden giant property developer Evergrande. In what is expected to be a heavy blow to the Chinese economy, Evergrande has been at the center of China's property crisis as the world's most indebted property giant exceeds $300 billion in debt. Evergrande's liquidation order comes as the Chinese real estate giant failed to agree on a concrete debt restructuring plan with its international creditors, even after negotiating for the past 19 months. Judge Linda Chan turned down Evergrande's request made on Friday for another 3 months of leeway, saying that enough is enough. The Shenzhen-based developer defaulted on its debt in 2021 and filed for bankruptcy in New York in 2023. Evergrande had total liabilities of $333 billion in June last year. Hong Kong courts showed that overseas creditors are owed $25 billion. While it remains unclear how much effect the Hong Kong court's decision can have in mainland China, experts speculate ripples to be felt in capital markets around the world. In sports news, Olympic gold medalist and Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva has received a 4-year suspension for doping. The Court of Arbitration for Sport's decision on Monday also effectively strips the Russian Olympic Committee of its gold medal in the team event. Valieva tested positive for the banned substance trimetazidine, used for the prevention of angina, at the Russian National Championships in December 2021. However, her positive result was only made known a day after she won gold at the Beijing Winter Olympics in 2022, to which the IOC decided no medals would be given out until Valieva's case has been resolved. As the Lausanne-based court decided on Monday, Valieva's 4-year ban is backdated to the 25th of December 2021. The world's largest cruise ship, the Icon of the Seas, began its maiden voyage on Saturday from the port of Miami. The ship is around 365 meters from bow to stern, which is the size of almost 4 city blocks. The cruise ship, operated by the Royal Caribbean Group, is divided into 8 neighborhoods across 20 decks, including 6 water slides, 7 swimming pools, an ice skating rink, a theater, and more than 40 restaurants, bars and lounges. The 7,600 passenger capacity cruise ship, which carries another 2,350 crew members, is powered by liquefied natural gas that may reduce sulfur and greenhouse gas emissions. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. As soon as the cold snap subsides, the air quality worsens in most places. Even Gyeongsang-do provinces will see air quality hitting bad levels in the afternoon. Those in southern provinces need to brace for frequent rain for the next few days. Rain that started from Jeju this afternoon should spread to Jeollanam-do province tonight. Then the rest of the south will receive rain tomorrow at dawn. Jeju could see up to 30 millimeters. The rest of the south will see 5 to 10 millimeters of rainfall. After highs are 1 to 5 degrees higher than yesterday, Seoul topping out at 7, Gyeongju, Jeju getting up to 12 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Meanwhile, cold wave alerts remain in place for many parts of Gangwon-do, but Pyeongchang finally sees highs jumping to above freezing at 1 degree. Now, Seoul sees a high of 9 degrees tomorrow. Meanwhile, a frequent wintry mix is in the forecast for southern regions and east of Gangwon-do province for the time being. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Russia's economy has proven to have held up fairly well despite sanctions, including its diamond industry. But it is going to take a more direct hit this year with new sanctions. Starting January, the EU and G7 countries are banning imports of non-industrial diamonds from Russia. And starting in March, restrictions will stretch to Russian diamonds processed in third countries. Come September, there will be a certification scheme on diamonds to verify their origin, with jewelry and watches containing diamonds to be subject to. The market is already devising a tracing system, as it is bracing for what 2 years of the war in Ukraine has done to the global diamond industry. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.